Good afternoon. I'm Emily, for those of you who don't know me, with Smoothstack. And thank you for joining us today. We timed this session, really to help to spread the word about Smoothstack, specifically in Connecticut. We recently announced the registration of our IT apprenticeship, partnered with the Department of Labor and the Connecticut Office of Apprenticeships. So we're really excited about that. And what we wanted to do is to talk about how this program really can expand and help the state of Connecticut and all of the major employers in the area to accomplish some common goals. A lot of the conversation recently, whether through the governor's office or, just through the Department of Labor, is all about skills-based hiring, building IT talent pipelines here in Connecticut. There's a lot of talk about strategies to attract top technical talent to the state of Connecticut and also to retain all of the great talent that's going through 2-year and 4-year programs. We're also going to talk about alternative pathways to get into the IT workforce and really how the Smoothstack model is built to help, all kinds of different candidates and with diverse backgrounds get into some of these jobs for the future. So just a brief overview of the agenda. So I'm just going to make a few more, opening remarks, and then we're going to have a really interesting panel discussion today. And the goal is to give you an overall view of the full Smoothstack experience. So we're going to talk with Prashant Ram, who is our CTO and one of the co-founders of Smoothstack. We're going to hear from Rufat, our talent success lead and mentor within our program, works with a lot of our new apprentices and also helps to mentor them over the 2-year program. And then we're going to hear from 2 of our apprentices that are working here in the state of Connecticut, Matthew Albright and Chris Cooper, to hear more about their backgrounds, their experiences with Smoothstack. And hopefully this session will really provide some great insight for you all to take back. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Smoothstack model, our mission is to create pathways for diverse talent to join the IT workforce. And, really our method of doing that is our career focused IT apprenticeship programs. We've taken a really tried and true apprenticeship model, which is a combination of, related technical instruction and on-the-job training. And we put it into about a 2.5-year program that involves the team at Smoothstack, and then also all of our different employer partners, and of course, our talented professionals that are coming into the program. The way that this program works is we partner with different employers who are looking for talent. We design customized programs to fit their skills needs, and then we recruit candidates from either locally here in Connecticut or from all across the country, put them through our 14 to 16 week program, and then we deploy them out as contractors. So these are some of the common program tracks that we run at Smoothstack. Although this is not everything, there's so many new emerging technologies that are popping up all the time, and we continue to expand and innovate based on our partners' needs. So here's, again, our panelists. I'm going to be moderating and basically asking some questions to get their perspectives and provide more color to this topic. So with that, I am actually going to start. Let's stop sharing my screen. Okay. Hey, guys. All right. So the first question I wanted to ask was to PR, and I wanted to see if you could talk to us about really why you started Smoothstack, how you built it, and what's really unique about the program.
Sure. Hey, everybody. It's such a honor to be speaking with a group of people who are really interested in the apprenticeship and an alternate path to the IT career. To go back, to roll the years back about 11 years ago, when John, the other co-founder on Smoothstack, and we started a solutions and services company. One of the major roadblocks or one of the major hurdles that we faced was kind of competing for talent in the marketplace. And we kind of found that everyone is going after the same talent pool, and we started seeing a repetition in the kind of people that were applying in various different timelines. Like 2 years later, we'll get the same kind of resume that we had sourced out in the market. So we kind of felt that the pool was a constant and everyone was trying to dip into the same pool. So what we tried to do was we tried to start for our own internal needs. We tried to start a training program inside of the company, and that seemed to create a lot of good results. And organically speaking, we started to think on it, and we found that since the technology was constantly changing, so let's say a 2 to 3 year time span, your technology stack has completely changed. So as a result, the years of experience on someone's resume really did not matter. It was only the talent and the training aspect of it that mattered, where people were constantly upgrading themselves to the newer technology. So as years rolled by, when some of our clients were very interested in what we were doing and how we were breeding talent in-house, they really liked it, and we tried it with some of our clients, and that was really the birth of the Smoothstack model itself, where we were able to do a constant 12 to 16 week training program, and kind of getting the beak wet for all this talented folks that had the gap between academia and industry, and we were able to transform them into IT talent that could really hit the road running on day one. So that was the birth of the Smoothstack model.
Awesome. So, one of the, common challenges that large employers are facing, and one of the concerns that they express to us a lot is, how can a program like this work to fill my, talent gaps and talent needs? So I think that, in general, people are very excited about our mission and the fact that we have this great opportunity to develop talent and to put people into career paths. And there's a lot of really great stuff going on in there. What's interesting though, is because, how you described the reason that you started the company was to fill a talent pipeline need. What the result of that is this great opportunity for our candidates. But still, we're filling an important gap in the marketplace. And so, could you talk a little bit about why the apprenticeship model works specifically for these difficult skill sets in software engineering and, cybersecurity, and what's unique about the Smoothstack model and how you've developed it and designed it to be able to achieve those results?
Sure, absolutely. So to again, anecdotally speaking, I kind of felt that the Smoothstack model was organically developed from just the gaps that we have faced along the road in building, in standing up a solutions firm in the IT space. So I myself, I don't come from a computer science background. So I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And this is 20 years back. So we never had a lot of IT influence into the engineering spaces back then. But what kind of happened was that I was able to organically build up the IT skill sets by working with mentors. And I should thank all the mentors that I worked with who have really imbibed me the IT skill set by with the model called a hands-on or a doing and showing kind of a model. So that was what took me back to the Smoothstack model, and we tried to imbibe that culture into the model. So academia solves a certain purpose of the core foundational and the logical reasoning skills that students acquire from there, but the whole application of that logical reasoning and the technology that is acquired into the industry space was a gap that we faced, and that was pretty evident in the gap that I faced when I initially started out my career. So we tried to imbibe those values into the model by making it into an apprenticeship model where people are not just sitting in a classroom and staring into a slide deck and then administered theoretical tests that they clear and they are certified. Rather, we went a route where there is classroom instruction, but the majority of the time that the Smoothstack apprentices do is actual working on projects that reflect the real life scenarios. And by doing that, they are able to acquire the skills that the IT industry requires. Now, this model has been done and practiced over and over again in a lot of technology-focused big firms like the Googles and the Amazons of the world. But we felt that the entire industry can benefit from this model, and that is why I think the Smoothstack model works.
Awesome, thank you. And one, I guess, a follow-on question. So, we've talked about the model and how it was designed and why. What makes a great candidate at Smoothstack? How do you, how I know we have a proprietary kind of a methodology in terms of how we identify talent, and this goes along with the skills-based hiring, right? And that is a complicated puzzle to solve. How do we find the best people when we're not assessing them based on those traditional markers, like where they went to school or previous work experience, or who they know, right? How else are we assessing talent, and what's unique about that?
Okay, so typically success at Smoothstack is determined by the kind of apprentices that we bring on board to start off this model. There are very abstract and some overall perspective kind of markers that we look for in terms of logical reasoning, in terms of just critical reasoning and problem solving abilities that we determine through some proprietary induction methodologies that we use. But we also look for some very unique markers that are not thought of in the traditional hiring model, but is more based on behavioral patterns of the apprentices that get into the Smoothstack model. To throw out an example, for example, we've noticed that people who've used Chrome browser versus your Internet Explorer or the standard Safari that gets installed on your Windows and your Mac tend to have that kind of a technical inclination, because the Chrome browser has a lot of features that get to a technically inclined person. Similarly, someone using an Ubuntu operating system for their personal computing needs versus a traditional Windows or a Mac also has a technical inclination because of the software that you install. You need to use a lot of command line tools for Ubuntu, etc. So these are some of the very unique markers that we look for when we determine who comes into the Smoothstack model, along with the critical reasoning and the problem solving abilities that we see. And we've always believed that technology is always teachable. Focus and effort is what is the intangibles that we look for in the trainees that we bring on.
Yep, for sure. So, I guess one final question, when we're thinking about the industry and what we're trying to accomplish, which is building a new workforce, right? We are transforming somewhat the existing workforce, but part of that transformation is infusing it with new talent. And why is it so important for us to focus on skills-based hiring versus more of a traditional background?
I always believe that technology is a great equalizer, right? And technology has a pattern of reinventing itself every so many years. So, given these two markers, it's our motto at Smoothstack that technology talent that can be groomed for the industry is available not only in the big name brand schools out there. It is, and nor is it just available based on the number of years of experience that a certain candidate has. So having these two markers, we look for talent all over the country, and typically our success ratio has been very high with smooth stack talent that have come from non-name brand, non-shiny degree schools, but more with has to do with the intangibles like the focus and the effort and the inclination towards technology. And because technology keeps shifting every so many years, I feel that the number of years of experience kind of becomes obsolete, and also to an extent kind of becomes like a roadblock in order to reinvent yourself every so many years, because technology is constantly evolving. So we create talent that are more adaptable in nature, that don't have the rigid nature in themselves to be stuck or be zeroed in or have a tunnel vision towards technology. They're more flexible, they're more adaptable, and they're constantly reinventing themselves and learning or constantly based on the changes in technology. So we emphasize on these three words, which is learn, unlearn, and relearn. So the most important aspect of it is the unlearning part, because a lot of talent is out there is very rigid and they have a very tunnel vision, which is what we try to eliminate, and we give a very holistic perspective of technology to our apprentices.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really encouraging, especially if you are an employer or any sort of a company who's thinking about not only bringing new talent into your organization, but how do we upskill and reskill the current talent that we have? And we have that type of conversation all the time about what's the best way to go about that, and what are some of the roadblocks. And it is very encouraging to know that there's, even if you don't have the requisite technical background, because of the nature of this kind of work, you're always, learning and relearning, and unlearning, like Prashant said. So really exciting. And I think it just, it breaks down a lot of barriers for those who are trying to get into these fields. So I'm going to shift over to some of our apprentices. And so, Matt, I know that, you came to Smoothstack with a little bit of an alternative background and had faced some challenges getting into the workforce, and you had some goals. And so I was hoping you could just share with us a little bit about your background, why you chose the program at Smoothstack, and, how the program has impacted you and your career.
Yeah, sure. Hello. So before I joined Smoothstack, I was doing some minor freelance work for my family's web design company, and just a lot of self-learning during that time. But also during that time, I was trying to look for a job, and I only had an associate's degree. So that definitely caused a lot of trouble. Even some of the entry-level positions I found and tried to apply for, like you couldn't even submit an application without putting in a 4-year degree. And then the ones I could usually didn't get a response from. So yeah, but then I found Smoothstack, and I was excited that they were willing to give me a shot. They looked past the fact that I only had the associate's degree and gave me a chance to prove that I was more capable than what my resume may have indicated. So, yep, once I was accepted and part of the program, I mean, the training helped me to develop my skills, learn some new skills, and also to learn to work as a team. We did a lot of team projects as well, that helped us prepare for what work would be like when we did start with a client. So that was really helpful to give us a strong start. Awesome. And yeah, since starting with the organization, I've received a lot of positive feedback about the work I've done, and I'm just excited about how this launched my career forward. And I'm just excited to see what else I can bring to the organization and what my future has.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I mean, you have done a phenomenal job since joining. A follow-on question for you, and I know it's a little bit of a hypothetical, but if you think back to the day when you're working as a contractor right now with the state of Connecticut, and thinking back on the interview process that you went through with that client prior to, you were in the Smoothstack program for 12 to 14 weeks approximately. So do you feel that you would have been able to perform and get that job in that interview prior to going through that 12 to 14 weeks?
No, probably not. I mean, the training we learned at Smoothstack definitely helped focus on teaching us what we needed to know for that interview, and just also helped prepare us for the interview. So yeah, it was definitely a big help to be in the program for that.
Awesome. And so I'm going to shift over to Chris. So Chris has a little bit of a different background. So I know that first off, you're a military veteran. So thank you. And I know you had gone through a 4-year degree program as well prior to joining Smoothstack. And I wanted to ask you, what's the difference between what you learned in college, right, during your 4-year, degree program versus, what you learned at Smoothstack? And a second question to maybe, keep in your answer is, how did your military experience impact you, and what sorts of experiences and skills did you gain that you feel are helping you now in your career?
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Cooper. So I'll go ahead and tackle the second one first about the military experience. Military is really a group effort all the time. So there's a lot of teamwork involved. You're always with a team, especially when where I worked out on the flight line working on the F-16 aircraft as a mechanic, and we were always in 3-man teams. And sometimes those teams changed a little bit. So there was also a leadership aspect that I had to learn even early on, even though I was not a non-commissioned officer. So I wasn't, by structure, I wasn't a leader in the role, but sometimes things had to shift, and I was the highest ranking of the team that was going out to do work. So then I became the leader, teaching other people how to perform their task, how to do the job in a correct and safe manner. Another thing, because I had a technical job in the military, there was communication that had to be learned, because not every officer that I spoke to understood my specific job and the technical reasons of the mechanics that I was working with may prohibit the aircraft from flying, and that had to be communicated to the higher ups. This is why this jet can't fly. So there was a lot of different communication where you had to talk to different people about technical and non-technical aspects of the job. So it was a lot of soft skills, communication, teamwork. There's also the discipline of, you get used to working long hours, hard work, and just getting through that. Sometimes you make a mistake, you gotta get yourself back up and push through.
Yep. So I'll interrupt you there. I think these are all of the things you're talking about, right? I think everyone knows where we're going with this. These are the inherent traits that when you're hiring for great employees, these are the traits that you're looking for, right? People that are taking on leadership roles when they don't necessarily have the job title, people that understand hard work, responsibility, and also in these technical jobs, to your point, Chris, explaining technical information to a non-technical person can be very challenging. And, so I think, with Chris and so many of our other veterans that come into our program, when they're coming out of service, they don't necessarily have the traditional, previous work experience, but what they're bringing to the table through their military service is so much more, and it's so valuable. Going back to what Prashant said, the technical stuff can be taught. If you have but the inherent traits that someone like Chris and many of our other apprentices have from their previous experiences, those are really the things that make or break a great candidate in terms of our program and what breeds success. So thank you for sharing that. And then maybe to the second question, I didn't give you a chance to answer that is. How would you compare what you learn in a 4-year computer science program to what you would learn at Smoothstack?
Okay, yeah. As far as 4-year university, at my particular 4-year university, we did really focus on practical application. So it wasn't just classroom lectures. However, because those classes were focused, they were on one thing. So you had the data structures class and you have an entire assignment. Yes, you did a practical application, but it was, okay, implement a queue as a data structure. And so you get everything segmented. You do get practice applying that one thing right there in a program that only does that. There was only 2 times, I can actually remember clearly that there was only 2 times that you had a full end-to-end process. And everybody's working, everybody's struggling, to learn that. And because there was only 2 times that you ever went through the design process, getting the requirements, formulating the user stories, and then continuing on all the way to testing, you don't get that practice of that full application that could actually be usable for anything besides an academic, yes, I understand how a data structure works. As opposed to Smoothstack, it's always that full end-to-end process that you're working with over multiple weeks, over multiple days, depending on the project that you're working with, while you're getting that training. And so even when you haven't had a full explanation of everything that you need to do in that full process, you still try and struggle along with the teamwork and build that experience.
So it sounds like there's a clear kind of a gap between what you are gaining through just 4-year university and then that practical application and end-to-end project work, kind of more in a realistic scenario. So, and what kind of work are you doing now that you are working out as a contractor with the state of Connecticut?
Okay, so this will actually go kind of as a callback to PR's statement about adaptability. I've had to adapt a lot in my work because I came into Smoothstack and we did a very heavily Microsoft Dynamics focused training. That's actually not the work that I've been doing so far. From the base of Microsoft Dynamics, because we also had to understand SQL, we also had to understand .NET with C#. That transitioned to maintenance and development using .NET for ASP.NET web applications. And then further on, more recently, I've had to transition to work with SQL Server data tools. And that is more for, specifically, I've been working with SSIS, which is SQL Server integration services. So it's ETL packages, extract, transform, load. So taking a data set from one database server, bringing all that data out, applying a transformation, maybe you have to change certain data types in order for it to fit in another database. So we had a DB2, which is a IBM database, that had to go to Dynamics, and then Microsoft Dynamics server that had to then go to a custom SQL server for a web application that actually Matt was the one that developed that.
That sounds really complicated, and it's better that you're working on it than me. Well, thank you, Chris. Yeah, we actually hear that a lot. We, put people in different scenarios, and a lot of it, in the real world, you do have to adapt. Needs will change, right? Initially, there was a need for Microsoft Dynamics, and right there, you need to be able to shift and adapt. So awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to shift over to Rufat, and Rufat's got a really unique role at Smoothstack because he kind of sits between our training staff and our participants, and he is involved in the initial screening of candidates as they're, assessing is Smoothstack the right program for me? He's getting a chance to learn about all these different kinds of backgrounds. And then he's also working with them through the training process. And then overall, that 2 years, he's continuing to maintain that point of contact with all of our apprentices as they're placed out on projects and they're facing different challenges, looking for resources and assistance from Smoothstack or just advice. And so I'm excited to hear some of Rufat's comments. The first question I had for you was just what are some of those day-to-day, pain points that you hear about when people are first coming into the program? What are some of their biggest challenges?
So yeah, actually my favorite part, as you mentioned, I'm involved in so many areas of this Smoothstack apprenticeship. But my favorite part personally is the training portion of the apprenticeship, which is an early stage of the program. And the reason why it's my favorite part is because it's just incredible to see the candidate's progress, and it happens so fast and naturally. Let's say during the initial interviews, we see a lot of talented people. Some of them don't have exposure to modern technologies. Some of them don't have professional experience. Some never worked in a team or don't have a degree, etc. So these are the things that are huge obstacles for them to get into the industry. But they all share one common thing, which is a passion for technology and learning. So this is the number one quality that we value in candidates when selecting them. Even during the initial interviews, we pay attention to how well they tend to master the skills they learn rather than how much they know. So back to training. So training team upskills them in a simulated work environment, following agile development practices, where they work with product owners and scrum masters to be ready to hit the ground running when they start working with our employer partners. And they attend classes and spend time, the rest of the time, working on their projects. And that gives them hands-on experience in every phase of the software development lifecycle, which is requirements, gatherings, design, implementation, testing, deployment. They all do that on themselves. And then one of the challenges will be that they have different backgrounds, and that kind of gives them hard time in the beginning to be on the same page. But since that I mentioned earlier, they have that one common thing, which is the passion for learning and technology, that solves a lot of issues. They start collaborating, even though in the beginning, some people think it's a lot of work, the workload is too high, a lot of concepts. They complain in the beginning, then they get used to it so fast, and they thrived by just being challenged. And it's just so incredible to watch this progress from the beginning of the training and before they start working with our clients.
Awesome. Thank you. One other question I wanted to ask you is, I know from my experience that there's a lot of feedback being given in a program like this, especially because of how fast we're ramping up, right? So it's extremely fast paced, and there's this constant kind of feedback loop going on between yourself, our different trainers and mentors. And so, how do the participants handle that? And, how do you feel this, consistent feedback and coaching, is really working for them, or I guess not working for them in some cases? I know that there's, we've had different situations with people, right, where it's not necessarily technical skills that's inhibiting their ability to grow. So I just wanted to see if you had some comments about that as well.
Sure. Yeah. At Smoothstack, besides technical skills, we make sure that the candidates, the apprentices, develop soft skills too. And during training, they learn how to effectively collaborate, communicate, or adapt to their teammates' work style, or manage their stress when something goes wrong, or the deadlines are close and they cannot meet the deadlines, or how to approach the disagreements with their teammates, present projects, provide feedback, receive feedback. And before we start the training portion of the apprenticeship, I always warn them. I say, you just gotta be open to feedback and criticism. The more you open to it during the training portion of it, the less you will have once you start working with our clients. So they are pretty much open to it, and they start even asking for it. And I continue to deliver feedback to them from our trainers every week after they do their demos, and I just give them calls and communicate the feedback. They're pretty much open to it. And of course, everyone wants to be praised, but sometimes that doesn't happen. But the way it works, that since they're open to it and they know they've kind of developed that growth mindset, and that helps them when they work even with our clients. So developing this work ethic and mindset before joining our clients makes them job ready. And I always get connected with our employer partners to get feedback on their performance, just to deliver that to them. This is what I usually hear, that our clients say that, Rufat, if you didn't tell us that they are junior level developers, we wouldn't even believe it, just because they just go above and beyond. They take ownership, and sometimes they even mentor our junior level employees. So our clients call Smoothstack apprentices rising stars, and they even ask them if they're bored or they need more or different responsibilities, just because they see how they thrive just by being challenged, and they want to make sure that they're also having fun with their responsibilities. So that's just incredible and exciting to hear from our clients.
Thanks. Yes, I've heard a lot of that feedback as well. So it's important to, we tend to not show resumes before we do interviews. And it's for that reason. Unfortunately, we all have unconscious bias. And when you're a hiring manager, and, I've been one, for many years in my role, working in staffing and recruiting, right? I was always responsible for assessing talent. And my method of doing that was by looking at a resume. And so you look at thousands of resumes and you start to just, your eye is attracted to certain things. So we intentionally remove that bias by holding those resumes back and having our clients meet with our candidates kind of sight unseen, so they can really see the skills, in the way that they're putting their projects together. So I'll echo that, being on the client side, that we get some great feedback. So thank you. And PR, did you have any other comments around that? Oh, you're muted right now.
Sorry. So yeah, I completely agree with Rufat's observations about feedback, and it's very important that we put together what do you say, a kind of like a display of the talent, So all our demo days are great displays of talent where instead of sitting in a one-on-one interview model where people are being judged back and forth only based on theoretical questions that are asked back and forth, rather it's more like a display of talent where it's a working session of a peer review happening where people are questioned on their code writing skills, like why did they do the design this way? Why was the architecture structured this way? And their reasoning comes behind when they are posed such questions. And it's always good to see a runner run rather than look at a resume of a run, right? So we let the runners run, and our clients take the best judgment of how they're running rather than just a bunch of words about what they've done, where they've run before.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Awesome. So before we open it up for questions, if there are any, I guess the final, what I wanted to ask PR was just what advice that he would give to anyone who's, listening to this conversation. And hopefully this was helpful. Our goal was just to help to give a little bit more of a behind the scenes look at how we do things at Smoothstack and some of our mindset and methodology and, the reasoning for how we have this whole program set up. But what advice would you give to any employer or organization interested in trying out a model like this with either a partner or maybe doing it themselves?
Absolutely. So to our employer partners, what we constantly communicate to some of our clients is that even when you do bring on new talent, you are going to try them out for a period of time. And in that period of time, you are going to have to spend some of your senior resources, senior technology folks to mentor them and take them along. And it's a very typical industry practice that 40 to 45% of this talent does not seem to be a good fit for themselves, and they are losing a considerable amount of time in vetting this talent, even though no matter what kind of vetting you've done before bringing this talent on, right? So we take out that pain point from the employer's perspective. We give back when, the mentors or the senior technical resources time that they would have otherwise spent on mentoring this talent. We are taking away that last mile hurdle that they have to imbibe new talent into their team. And that is what Smoothstack, and if you do apply a proper cost value analysis on that, you will see that Smoothstack's value that it brings to the table is greatly justified. And to folks who are trying to try out the whole internship model, I would say that this is definitely how the future of recruiting is going to look like, especially with the growth in the IT needs and the newer skill stacks that are required in the new age jobs. So this is definitely, I wouldn't be surprised a lot of other companies adapting such a model for their own internal recruitment needs.
Yeah, and I think they are, and many Smoothstack partners have, combinations of internal programs we assist them with in different capacities. They have multiple partners. So yeah, absolutely. The future is kind of building these ecosystems where you can be grooming and developing your own talent and then gaining access to some of these emerging talent pools. So thank you. And so, we've got plenty of time left. If there are any questions, you can send them through the chat for either myself or for any of our panelists right now. And if not, that's okay too, but I'll give a minute if anyone wants to chat anything in. All right. So doesn't look like we have any questions coming in. So we will conclude this session a little bit early. So again, thank you for those of you who are able to attend live. We'll again post this content out. If there's any follow-up questions or information we can provide, please get in touch with us. And thank you very much. Thank you to all of our Smoothstack panelists as well.
Thank you, Emily, for having us. And I'll add one thing, that for those who will watch this video on YouTube, please feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions.
Yeah, leave a comment. All right. Thank you, everyone.